The grand chamber of the Velnorian High Court was the largest room Daniel Grant had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds of pale mist floated near the top. Thousands of seats curved around the central platform where diplomats from dozens of alien species sat in perfect rows. Light came from glowing crystals embedded in the walls, casting everything in soft blue and gold. Daniel stood at attention behind Ambassador Laura Collins. He was her sentinel, her protector, and he had been at her side for 3 years now. His job was simple: keep her safe, watch for danger, be ready for anything. Laura sat at the human delegation table, reviewing her notes one last time. She was a woman in her early 40s, with kind eyes and a sharp mind. Daniel had seen her talk down angry warlords and charm hostile diplomats. She was good at her job, and she believed in what she did. Today was important. The Galactic Coalition was meeting to discuss trade agreements with human territories. Earth had only been part of the coalition for 12 years, and many alien species still did not trust humans. They thought humans were too young, too emotional, too unpredictable. Daniel scanned the chamber. He noticed the Colossian delegation sitting across the room. Their leader, Counselor Thrin, was a tall creature with gray skin and narrow yellow eyes. Thrin had spoken against humans many times. He did not want Earth to have equal trade rights. He believed humans would cause problems. High Arbiter Zorvan entered the chamber, and everyone fell silent. The Arbiter was ancient. Even by Velnorian standards, he stood 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He moved slowly to his elevated seat and raised one long hand. "The summit will begin," Zorvan announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We gather to discuss the expansion of trade routes to human territories. Ambassador Collins, you may speak first." Laura stood and walked to the central platform. Daniel watched her carefully. She looked confident, but he knew her well enough to see the small signs of nervousness. This speech mattered. The future of human trade depended on it. "High Arbiter, honored delegates," Laura began. Her voice was clear and strong. "Humanity asks only for fairness. We have followed every rule. We have respected every treaty. We have proven that we can be trusted partners in this great coalition." Daniel listened as she spoke about human colonies, human goods, and human workers who needed fair access to galactic markets. She talked about cooperation and mutual benefit. She was convincing, as always. Then, something changed. Laura paused in the middle of a sentence. Her hand moved to her chest. Daniel saw her face go pale. "Ambassador," someone called out. Laura tried to continue speaking, but her words came out wrong. She stumbled backward, her legs giving out beneath her. Daniel was already moving before she hit the ground. He reached her in seconds, dropping to his knees beside her. Her eyes were wide with fear. Her breathing was fast and shallow. Sweat covered her forehead. "Laura," Daniel said quietly, "can you hear me? What do you feel?" Burning," she whispered. "Inside, everything is burning." The chamber erupted in chaos. Alien diplomats shouted in dozens of languages. Some rushed forward while others backed away in fear. Daniel ignored all of them. He focused only on Laura. He checked her pulse. It was racing, far too fast. He looked at her skin and saw thin red lines spreading from her neck toward her jaw. These were not normal symptoms. This was not a heart attack or a stroke. This was something else entirely. Velnorian physicians pushed through the crowd, but they stopped a few feet away. They looked at Laura with confusion and fear. Human bodies were different from theirs. They did not know how to help. "Move back," Daniel ordered. "Give her space." High Arbiter Zorvan's voice cut through the noise. "Silence. Everyone will remain calm. What is happening to the human ambassador?" Daniel looked up at the Arbiter. "She has been poisoned." Gasps filled the chamber. Counselor Thrin stood from his seat. "Poisoned? That is a serious accusation, human. Perhaps your ambassador is simply ill. Humans are known to be fragile." Daniel ignored the insult. He turned back to Laura and studied the red lines on her skin. He had seen these marks before. In training simulations. His mind raced through everything he knew about toxic compounds. Then he realized what he was looking at. "This is novolith poisoning," Daniel said. He kept his voice steady even though his heart was pounding. Novolith is a synthetic compound. It was developed on a human colony world for industrial cleaning. It was banned 15 years ago because it is deadly to organic tissue. The Velnorian physicians looked at each other in confusion. They had never heard of novolith. How would such a poison reach this chamber? Zorvan demanded. Daniel looked around the room. Hundreds of eyes stared back at him. Some looked worried. Some looked curious. And some, he noticed, looked afraid in a different way. The fear of someone who has something to hide. "I do not know yet," Daniel said. "But I will find out." He looked down at Laura. Her eyes were closing. The poison was working fast. "She needs treatment immediately," Daniel said. "If we do not slow the poison's progress, she will die within hours." Zorvan nodded and gestured to the physicians. "Take her to the medical chamber. Do whatever the human sentinel tells you." As they lifted Laura onto a transport bed, Daniel made a silent promise. He would find whoever did this. He would find the truth. And he would make them pay. The mystery had begun. The medical chamber was cold and white. Strange machines hummed around Laura's bed, pumping chemicals into her body to slow the poison. The Velnorian physicians had put her into stasis, a kind of deep sleep that would give them more time. But time was still running out. Daniel stood beside her bed and watched the monitors. Her heartbeat was slow but steady. The red lines on her skin had stopped spreading. At least for now. She was alive. But she was not safe. A door opened behind him. High Arbiter Zorvan entered the chamber, his 4 eyes studying everything with careful attention. "Human Sentinel," Zorvan said. "The Council demands answers. Some members believe this was an accident. Others believe it was staged by your own people for sympathy." Daniel turned to face the Arbiter. "It was not an accident, and it was not staged. Ambassador Collins was deliberately poisoned with novolith. Someone wanted her dead." "Novolith is a human compound," Zorvan said. "Does this not suggest a human attacker?" "It suggests someone with access to human black markets," Daniel replied. "Or someone who wanted to make it look like a human attack. Either way, I need to investigate." Zorvan was silent for a long moment. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, one pair at a time. "The Velnorian court does not normally allow outsiders to investigate within our jurisdiction," he said finally. "Many council members will object. With respect, High Arbiter, your investigators do not know anything about novolith. They do not know human biology. They do not know how to find a human poison in an alien court." Daniel kept his voice calm but firm. "I am the only one who can solve this." Before Zorvan could respond, the door opened again. Counselor Thrin walked in, his yellow eyes burning with anger. "This is unacceptable," Thrin said. "A human cannot be allowed to investigate within Coalition space. It is a violation of protocol." "Oh. A murder attempt against a Coalition diplomat is also a violation," Daniel said. "A more serious one." Thrin stepped closer to Daniel. He was taller by nearly 2 feet, and he used his height to try to intimidate. "Perhaps the ambassador poisoned herself. Humans are known for their dramatic behavior. Perhaps she wanted attention." Daniel did not step back. Ambassador Collins was about to deliver the most important speech of her career. Why would she poison herself before finishing it? Thrin had no answer for that. He turned to Zorvan instead. "High Arbiter, you cannot allow this. The human will twist the investigation to blame innocent Coalition members." Zorvan raised one hand for silence. "I have made my decision. The human sentinel will be granted limited authority to investigate. He will report his findings directly to me. If he acts improperly, he will be removed immediately." Thrin's face twisted with anger, but he said nothing. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing loudly. Daniel nodded to the arbiter. "Thank you. I will begin immediately." Over the next several hours, Daniel reviewed everything he could find. He watched security footage from the Grand Chamber. He studied the list of everyone who had entered before the summit. He interviewed servants and guards. Most of the aliens he spoke to were cooperative. They seemed genuinely shocked by what had happened. But a few were nervous. They avoided his questions. They looked away when he asked about the morning before the summit. Daniel focused on one detail that kept bothering him. Laura had been drinking water during the summit. A servant had filled her glass before the session began. Daniel found the footage and watched it carefully. The servant was Colossian, with the same gray skin and narrow eyes as Counselor Thrin. In the footage, the servant approached the human delegation table and poured water into Laura's glass. But just before pouring, the servant's hand passed over the glass for a brief moment. It was quick, almost invisible. But Daniel saw it. He saved the footage and went looking for the servant. The servant's name was Vora. Daniel learned that Vora had worked in the court for only 2 months. Before that, Vora had worked on a Colossian trade vessel. The same trade vessel, Daniel discovered, that Counselor Thrin had arrived on. Daniel felt his suspicions growing stronger. He found the storage chamber where Vora was supposed to be working. The door was closed. Daniel knocked. But there was no answer. He tried the door and found it unlocked. Inside, the room was dark. Boxes and containers filled the space. Daniel stepped carefully, his hand moving to the weapon at his belt. Then he saw Vora. The servant was lying on the floor behind a stack of crates. Gray skin had turned pale. Yellow eyes stared at nothing. Vora was dead. Daniel knelt beside the body and examined it. There were no obvious wounds, but he noticed a small mark on Vora's neck. It looked like an injection site. Someone had poisoned the servant to keep them quiet. Daniel stood and looked around the room. Whoever killed Vora had done it recently. The body was still warm. The killer might still be nearby. He activated his communication device and contacted Zorvan directly. "Hi, Arbiter. I found the servant who poisoned Ambassador Collins. But someone else found them first. The servant is dead." There was a long pause. Then Zorvan's voice came through, heavy with concern. "This is worse than I feared. We are dealing with more than one attacker." "Yes," Daniel said. "There is a conspiracy here. And I am going to find everyone involved." He looked down at Vora's body one last time. The servant had been used as a tool and then thrown away. Whoever was behind this did not care about innocent lives. Daniel walked out of the storage chamber with new determination. The investigation was no longer just about finding one attacker. It was about uncovering a web of secrets that someone was willing to kill to protect. And Daniel would not stop until he found the truth. The news of Vora's death spread through the court like fire. Diplomats whispered in corners. Guards increased their patrols. Everyone was afraid, and everyone was suspicious. Daniel spent the night digging deeper into the conspiracy. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Laura lying on that chamber floor, her face twisted in pain. He could not rest until he found the people responsible. High Arbiter Zorvan summoned the council for an emergency meeting the next morning. Daniel stood at the back of the chamber and watched as the delegates argued with each other. "This is a human problem," one delegate shouted. "The poison was human. The target was human. Let the humans deal with it. The murder happened on Velnorian soil," another replied. "We cannot ignore it." Counselor Thrin sat in his seat with his arms crossed. He looked calm, almost bored. But Daniel noticed that Thrin's eyes kept moving toward him. The counselor was watching Daniel just as carefully as Daniel was watching him. After the meeting, Daniel returned to his investigation. He needed to find out how Novalith had reached Velnor Prime. The poison was banned. It could not be purchased legally anywhere in the galaxy. Someone had smuggled it through black market channels. Daniel accessed the trade records for the past 3 months. He searched for any ships that had traveled from human space to Velnorian territory. Most of the ships were clean, carrying legal goods with proper documentation, but one ship caught his attention. It was a Colossian trade vessel called the Varn Keth. The ship had traveled from a human border colony to Velnor Prime just 2 weeks before the summit. Its cargo manifest listed only standard supplies, but Daniel noticed something strange. The ship had made an unscheduled stop at a small station known for illegal trading. Daniel checked the passenger list for the Varn Keth. Counselor Thrin's name was on it. This was not proof of guilt. Thrin could claim he knew nothing about any smuggled cargo. But it was another connection. Another thread in the web that Daniel was slowly uncovering. He decided to interview other diplomats who might know more about Thrin's activities. He started with a Morvian delegate named Ambassador Kell, an elderly creature with silver fur and wise eyes. Counselor Thrin has always opposed human expansion, Kell told Daniel, but I never thought he would resort to murder. Do you know why he opposes humans so strongly? Daniel asked. Kell hesitated. There are rumors. Some say Thrin is involved in illegal resource extraction on a neutral planet called Veros 3. The operation violates coalition law. If it were exposed, Thrin would lose everything. And Ambassador Collins? Daniel pressed. Did she know about this? Your ambassador has been investigating corruption within the coalition for months, Kell said. She was close to exposing several powerful delegates. Thrin may have been one of them. Daniel felt the pieces coming together. Laura had been targeted not because she was human, but because she was dangerous. She had been about to reveal secrets that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. He thanked Kell and left the diplomatic quarters. His mind was racing with new possibilities. But before he could reach his next destination, someone attacked him. The blow came from behind, hitting him in the shoulder and knocking him against a wall. Daniel spun around and saw a masked figure rushing toward him with a blade. He blocked the first strike and countered with a punch to the attacker's chest. The figure stumbled, but came back quickly, slashing at Daniel's arm. The blade cut through his sleeve and drew blood. Daniel grabbed the attacker's wrist and twisted hard. The blade clattered to the floor. He threw the figure against the wall and pinned them there. Who sent you? Daniel demanded. The attacker said nothing. Daniel pulled off the mask and saw a face he did not recognize. The creature was Orvan, a species known for working as mercenaries. You have 2 choices, Daniel said. Tell me who hired you, or I hand you over to the Velnorian guards. They are not as patient as I am. Thanks for watching. I have once subscribed to Belfried. The mercenary laughed. You think I fear the guards? I fear my employer more. If I talk, I am dead. You are going to prison either way, Daniel said. At least if you talk, you might survive. The mercenary considered this for a moment. Then his expression hardened. I will tell you nothing, human. Daniel called for guards and handed the mercenary over. But before the guards took him away, Daniel searched the attacker's belongings. He found a small device hidden in a pocket. It was a communication unit with encrypted messages. Daniel took the device back to his quarters and spent hours breaking the encryption. When he finally accessed the messages, he found exactly what he was looking for. The messages contained instructions for the attack on Daniel. They described his movements, his schedule, and his investigation progress. And they came from a source inside the court. The final message contained coordinates. They pointed to a specific location within the diplomatic wing, Counselor Thrin's private quarters. Daniel stared at the screen. He finally had a direct connection. The evidence was not complete, but it was enough to force Zorvan to take action. He stood and prepared to present his findings. The time for patience was over. It was time to confront the enemy directly, and Daniel would make sure Thrin had nowhere left to hide. Daniel requested an urgent private meeting with High Arbiter Zorvan. The Arbiter agreed to see him immediately, and they met in a small chamber away from the main court. What have you found? Zorvan asked. His 4 eyes studied Daniel with intense focus. Daniel placed the encrypted device on the table. The mercenary who attacked me was carrying this. The messages inside contain instructions that came from inside the court. The coordinates point directly to Counselor Thrin's private quarters. Zorvan picked up the device and examined it. This is serious. But Thrin is a senior member of the coalition. Accusing him without solid proof will cause great problems. I have more than this, Daniel said. He laid out everything he had discovered. The Colossian servant Vora, who had poisoned Laura's water. The fact that Vora had worked on Thrin's ship. The smuggled novolith that came through on that same ship. The connection between Thrin and illegal operations on Veros 3. And the fact that Laura had been investigating coalition corruption. Ambassador Collins was about to expose Thrin's crimes, Daniel concluded. He tried to kill her to protect himself. Zorvan was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy. I have known Thrin for many years. I never believed he would do something like this. Powerful people do terrible things to stay powerful, Daniel said. I have seen it before. The Arbiter nodded slowly. Very well. I will summon Thrin to the Grand Chamber for formal questioning. You will present your evidence before the full council. 1 hour later, the Grand Chamber was filled once again. Every delegate had been called to witness the questioning. Guards stood at every door. The tension in the room was so thick that Daniel could almost feel it pressing against his skin. Counselor Thrin sat in a chair at the center of the platform. He looked calm and confident, as if he had nothing to fear. But Daniel noticed small signs of nervousness, the way Thrin's fingers tapped against his leg, the way his eyes kept moving toward the exits. High Arbiter Zorvan called the session to order. Counselor Thrin, you have been summoned to answer questions regarding the poisoning of Ambassador Laura Collins and the murder of the servant Vora. Human Sentinel Daniel Grant will present evidence against you. Thrin laughed. Evidence? From a human? This is insulting. Humans are known liars and manipulators. Whatever evidence this Sentinel has produced, it is certainly fabricated. Daniel stepped forward. He did not let Thrin's words affect him. He had prepared for this moment carefully. 3 days ago, Ambassador Collins was poisoned with novolith during the summit, Daniel began. Novolith is a banned compound that can only be obtained through illegal channels. I traced the poison to a shipment that arrived on the trade vessel Varn Keth 2 weeks ago. Counselor Thrin traveled on that vessel. Coincidence, Thrin said. I travel on many vessels. I do not inspect their cargo. The servant Vora placed the poison in Ambassador Collins's water. Daniel continued. Security footage shows Vora's hand passing over the glass. Vora worked on the Varnketh before coming to the court. Vora was hired by someone on Thrin's staff. The servant is dead, Thrin said. Convenient, is it not? You cannot prove any connection. I can prove that Vora was murdered to prevent them from talking, Daniel said. And I can prove that you sent a mercenary to kill me when I got too close to the truth. He held up the encrypted device. This device contains messages ordering my assassination. The messages originated from your private quarters. For the first time, Thrin's confidence faltered. His yellow eyes widened slightly. That device could have been planted, Thrin said. Humans are clever at deception. Then explain the financial records, Daniel said. He activated a display screen that showed documents and transactions. These records show payments from accounts linked to your name, going to illegal mining operations on Veros 3. Ambassador Collins was investigating these operations. She was weeks away from presenting her findings to the coalition. You poisoned her to stop that from happening. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Delegates turned to look at each other. Some looked at Thrin with new suspicion in their eyes. Thrin stood from his chair. His calm mask had cracked. Anger burned in his expression now. This is a conspiracy against me, he shouted. The humans want to destroy the coalition from within. They are using lies to remove anyone who opposes them. The evidence speaks for itself, Daniel said. You tried to murder an innocent woman to protect your crimes. You killed a servant who knew too much. And you sent an assassin after me. Thrin looked around the chamber. He saw no support in the faces watching him, only suspicion and disgust. Suddenly, he ran toward the nearest exit. Stop him, Zorvan commanded. Court guards moved quickly. They caught Thrin before he reached the door and forced him to his knees. He struggled against them, but they held him firmly. You do not understand, Thrin screamed. I am not the only one. There are others. Powerful people who wanted the human ambassador dead. I was just following orders. Daniel walked closer. Then give me their names. Thryn looked up at him. For a moment, fear replaced anger in his eyes. If I tell you, they will kill me. If you do not tell us, you will spend the rest of your life in a Velnorian prison, Daniel said. Your choice. Thryn lowered his head. The fight had gone out of him. I will give you names. But you must protect me. Zorvan nodded to the guards. Take him to a secure cell. We will continue this questioning in private. As Thryn was dragged away, the chamber fell silent. Daniel stood alone on the platform, surrounded by hundreds of alien eyes. The human has done what none of us could, Zorvan said quietly. He has exposed a conspiracy that reaches deep into our coalition. Daniel did not feel triumphant. He felt tired and worried. The antidote for Novolith was being prepared, but Laura's condition had worsened during the investigation. He needed to get back to the medical chamber. The mystery was solved, but the most important fight was not over yet. Laura still needed to survive. Daniel rushed to the medical chamber as soon as Thryn was taken away. The Velnorian physicians were gathered around Laura's bed, their expressions grim. What is happening? Daniel demanded. The lead physician turned to face him. The stasis is failing. The poison has spread further than we expected. We have synthesized the antidote based on the information you provided, but we do not know if it will work in time. Daniel moved to Laura's side. She looked so pale, so fragile. The red lines on her skin had spread across her face and down her arms. Her breathing was shallow and weak. Give her the antidote, Daniel said. Now. The physicians prepared the injection. Daniel watched as they carefully administered the treatment into Laura's arm. The chamber fell silent. Everyone waited. Minutes passed. Nothing changed. Daniel felt his heart sinking. He had solved the mystery. He had caught the people responsible. But none of that mattered if Laura died. Come on, he whispered. Fight this. You are stronger than they know. An hour passed. Then 2. The physicians monitored Laura's vital signs constantly. Daniel refused to leave her side. Other human delegates arrived and offered their support. But Daniel barely heard them. His entire focus was on Laura. Then, slowly, something changed. The red lines on Laura's skin began to fade. Her heartbeat grew stronger. Her breathing became deeper and more regular. The antidote is working, the lead physician announced. Her body is fighting the poison. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Relief washed over him like warm water. It took another 6 hours for Laura to wake up. When her eyes finally opened, Daniel was still sitting beside her bed. Daniel, she said. Her voice was weak, but it was her voice. What happened? Daniel smiled for the first time in days. You were poisoned. At the summit. Do you remember? Laura frowned, trying to recall. I remember speaking. And then pain. So much pain. A Colossian counselor named Thryn arranged the attack, Daniel explained. He was involved in illegal operations and was afraid you would expose him. He hired a servant to poison your water. Laura's eyes widened. Thryn. I suspected he was corrupt, but I never thought he would try to kill me. He is in custody now, Daniel said. He has agreed to name his allies in exchange for protection. The coalition is launching a full investigation. Laura tried to sit up but winced in pain. Daniel gently helped her settle back down. You should rest, he said. The antidote saved your life, but your body needs time to recover. How long have you been here? Laura asked. Since they brought you in, Daniel admitted. I was not going to leave you. Laura reached out and took his hand. Thank you, Daniel, for everything. 2 days later, Laura insisted on returning to the Grand Chamber. The physicians warned her that she was not fully recovered, but she would not listen. The summit had been interrupted, and she was determined to finish what she had started. Daniel walked beside her as they entered the chamber. Every delegate turned to watch them. The room fell completely silent. High Arbiter Zorvan rose from his seat. Ambassador Collins, it is good to see you recovered. The court welcomes you back. Laura walked slowly to the central platform. She was still weak, and Daniel could see the effort it took for her to stand straight. But her voice was strong when she spoke. High Arbiter, honored delegates. 3 days ago, someone tried to silence me. They poisoned me because they feared what I would say. They believed that killing me would protect their secrets and stop humanity from gaining a voice in this coalition. She paused and looked around the chamber. They were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the delegates. Laura continued, I am standing here today because of one man, my Sentinel, Daniel Grant. When I collapsed, he did not panic. He did not give up. He fought for the truth, even when no one believed him, even when powerful enemies tried to stop him, even when it seemed hopeless. She turned to look at Daniel. Humans are often dismissed in this coalition. We are called young, emotional, fragile. But what Daniel showed these past days is something that cannot be measured by age or technology. He showed loyalty. He showed determination. He showed the kind of courage that refuses to quit no matter the odds. Daniel felt his face grow warm. He was not used to public praise. He was just a sentinel who did his job. Laura turned back to the council. I ask this coalition to remember what happened here. Remember that a human solved a mystery your own investigators could not solve. Remember that a human exposed corruption that had been hidden for years. And remember that a human refused to let injustice win. High Arbiter Zorvan nodded slowly. Ambassador Collins speaks wisely. The human sentinel has earned the respect of this court. His actions have saved lives and protected the integrity of the coalition. Zorvan stood and raised his hand. I propose that human territories be granted full trade rights, as originally requested, and I further propose that human sentinels be invited to serve as investigators within coalition space. Their skills and dedication have proven invaluable. The vote was held immediately. For the first time in coalition history, the measure passed without a single objection. Later that evening, Daniel and Laura stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city. The twin suns of Velnor Prime were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. You did not have to say all those things about me, Daniel said. I was just doing my job. Laura shook her head. No. You were doing more than your job. You believed in me when everyone else had given up. You fought for me when it would have been easier to walk away. She turned to face him. That is what makes humans special, Daniel. Not our technology or our strength. Our loyalty. Our heart. Our refusal to abandon the people we care about. Daniel looked out at the alien city. Somewhere down there, coalition delegates were discussing the future. A future that would now include humans as full partners. They will remember this day, Laura said. Not because of what they tried to take from us, but because of what you refused to let them take. Daniel nodded. He thought about everything that had happened. The collapse that shocked the court, the mystery that seemed impossible to solve. The moment when Laura finally opened her eyes. He had become a sentinel to protect people. But in these past few days, he had done something more. He had shown the entire galaxy what humans were capable of. And that, he realized, was worth more than any victory. The suns disappeared below the horizon. And the stars came out. Daniel and Laura stood together in the darkness. Two humans who had changed the course of history. And somewhere among those stars, Earth was waiting to welcome them home.